Hello everyone, welcome to EverlastCyber, your go-to destination for comprehensive cybersecurity tips. In this video, we'll be sharing some practice questions and answers for Domain 6 of the CISSP exam, and this domain covers security assessment and testing. Without wasting further time, we'll dive right into the questions. Question 1. Which of the following is a primary goal of a security awareness training program within an organization? A. To teach employees the organization's security expectations. B. To achieve compliance with industry security standards. C. To reduce the likelihood of insider threats and data breaches. D. To ensure employees can respond effectively to security incidents. The correct answer here would be option C. The primary goal of a security awareness training in an organization is to reduce the likelihood of insider threats and data breaches. This is because employees are your first line of defense, so when you empower them by training them on security awareness, it will reduce the likelihood of the threats happening because of an insider within the organization. So that's why we are going with option C. Ensuring that your employees can respond effectively to security incidents, it's a very important objective, and the primary goal is to reduce the likelihood of the data breaches and insider threats. Now, this is accompanied by educating the employee about the potential security threats, promoting secure behaviors, and encouraging vigilance in protecting the organization's information and assets. Question 2. Which of the following security assessment methods is most effective for identifying unknown vulnerabilities that are not disclosed publicly? A. Penetration testing. B. Code review. C. Security information and events management. D. Vulnerability scanning. The answer we'll be going with is option A. Penetration testing is the most effective security assessment method for identifying unknown weaknesses or vulnerabilities that are not yet disclosed publicly. This is because penetration testing simulates real-world attacks, and it actively attempts to exploit potential weaknesses within the system. So once this is done, it will enable the organization to identify the unknown vulnerabilities which are not yet known to the public. There are different types of penetration testing. We have the white box testing, we have the black box testing, as well as the gray box testing. We'll be speaking further on that as we move on with the questions. Question 3. XYZ Bank, which is a multinational financial institution, is preparing for a security control testing process to evaluate the effectiveness of its security controls. They want to ensure that their controls are operating as intended and provide the necessary protection for customer data and financial transactions. Which of the following statements about security control testing is appropriate? A. Security control testing is a one-time process and does not need repetition. B. Security control testing evaluates the implementation and effectiveness of security controls. C. Security control testing involves documentation of security policies and procedures. D. Security controls testing is conducted solely by internal teams to maintain confidentiality. First of all, we need to know that security control testing is an ongoing process that evaluates whether the security controls are implemented correctly, and whether they are effectively protecting assets such as financial transactions and customer data. Security control testing also involves various methods like vulnerability scanning, penetration testing, as well as security assessments in order to identify weaknesses and vulnerabilities in the security controls. So taking a look at the options, option A is not correct because security control is definitely not a one-time process. It should be conducted periodically to ensure the ongoing effectiveness of security measures. Option C, security control testing involves documentation of security policies and procedures. This is not correct as well. While documentation of security policies is important for compliance and governance, it is not the primary focus of security control testing. Option D is also incorrect because security control testing may involve both internal and external teams to provide a comprehensive evaluation and ensure impartiality and thoroughness. So we'll be going with option B. Security control testing evaluates the implementation and effectiveness of security controls using the various methods like penetration testing, vulnerability scanning, and security assessment in order to identify weaknesses and vulnerabilities in the security controls. Question 4. Before initiating penetration testing against critical servers and networks, what is the most important thing to be reviewed so that it does not impact the organization? A. Penetration testing should only be performed on an external server. B. Penetration testing often includes non-technical methods of attack. C. Penetration testing should only be performed after careful consideration, notification, and planning. D. Review industry standards and compliance requirements. One thing to note is that penetration testing can potentially disrupt systems, cause downtime, as well as impact services if it is not conducted properly. So it only makes sense that before initiating a penetration test against critical servers and network, it is reviewed to ensure that it is only performed after careful consideration, notification, and planning. So we'll be going with option C. Before penetration testing is performed, it should be ensured that the proper authorization is obtained, the stakeholders are notified, and then it should be scheduled to occur during the off-peak hours if possible. This is to mitigate against any potential risks or disruptions during business hours. Question 5. Which of these provides the best assurance of an application's security posture over time? A. Quarterly vulnerability assessments. B. Continuous integration with security testing. C. Implementing stricter password policies. D. Conducting annual penetration tests. The answer we'll be going with here is option B. Continuous integration with security testing ensures that as a new code is added or as changes are made, security tests are run giving a real-time view of the application's security posture. So this gives the best assurance of an application security posture over time. Continuous integration with security testing. Question 6. What is the primary purpose of a security assessment? A. Identifying vulnerabilities in the system. B. Assessing the financial impact of security incidents. C. Evaluating the likelihood of security threats. D. Implementing technical security controls. The answer we'll be going with here as a primary purpose of a security assessment is option A. Identifying vulnerabilities in the system. A security assessment aims to systematically evaluate an organization's information systems in order to identify weaknesses, vulnerabilities, and potential security gaps which could be exploited by hackers. This process helps in understanding the current security posture, and it also provides a basis for implementing appropriate measures in order to mitigate these identified risks. Question 7. In the context of mobile application development, ensuring that application components are not exposed to other apps on the same device refers to A. Code obfuscation, B. Data at rest encryption, C. Application sandboxing, D. Data in transit protection. The answer we'll be going with here is option C. Application sandboxing, and I'll just give a brief rundown of the other options. Code obfuscation is a technique that is used to make the code or machine code of a program difficult to understand. This enhances the security and makes it harder for hackers to understand or modify the code. Data at rest encryption refers to the encryption of data that is stored on a device. It protects the data from unauthorized access and ensures confidentiality, and this is only when the data is not actively being used. Data in transit involves securing data that is being transmitted over networks, and this is typically done using encryption protocols like the TLS SSL to prevent man-in-the-middle attacks and eavesdropping. Option C, application sandboxing, is a security mechanism that is used to isolate individual applications and their data from each other on a device. Now, each application runs in its own sandbox environment, and it restricts its access to resources and data outside of its designated area. This isolation helps to prevent unauthorized access or interference from other apps, and it thus enhances the overall security of the device as well as the applications installed on it. Question 8. What are the primary benefits security consultants will achieve from security assessment results? A. Attacker pattern. B. Organization is compliant with ISO standards. C. Discovery of unpatched vulnerabilities. D. Determination of security control effectiveness. The primary benefits that security consultants will achieve from security assessment results is the determination that all the security controls in place are effective. So we'll be going with option D. Security assessment helps to evaluate the strength of an organization's security measures and controls by identifying the vulnerabilities, weaknesses, and areas for improvement. By analyzing the assessment results, security consultants can assess how well the existing security controls are performing in protecting the organization's assets and data against potential threats and attacks. This allows them to make informed decisions and provide recommendations for enhancing the organization's overall security posture. So, option D is the answer. Question 9. You are a cybersecurity consultant responsible for assessing and testing the security of a financial institution's network infrastructure. As a part of the assessment, you are tasked with identifying vulnerabilities in their system. You have performed a network scan and identified an open port on one of their servers. What is the best approach to determine the service running on the open port in this scenario? A. Banner grabbing. B. Port scanning. C. Vulnerability scanning. D. Network mapping. I will explain each of the options before we reveal the final answer. Option A. Banner grabbing involves connecting to the open port and capturing the banner or response from each of the service running on that port. Option B. Port scanning. This is the initial step that identifies the open ports, but it does not provide information about the service running on that port. Option C, vulnerability scanning, is aimed at identifying security vulnerabilities in systems and applications. However, it does not determine the service that is associated with an open port. Option D, network mapping, involves creating a map of a network's topology, including devices and connections. While it may be useful for understanding the overall network architecture, it does not directly determine the service that is running on the open port. So we'll be going with option A. Banner grabbing involves connecting to the open port, capturing the banner from the service running on that port, and this banner will typically contain information about the service such as the name and the version number. Now, by analyzing this banner, you'll be able to determine the specific service that is running on that open port. Question 10. JVC Healthcare, a large healthcare organization, is undergoing a comprehensive security assessment of its network infrastructure and medical record system. Their goal is to identify weaknesses and vulnerabilities that could compromise patient data and ensure regulatory compliance. Which of the following security assessment methods will be the most suitable for JVC Healthcare's needs? A. Security code review. B. Vulnerability scanning. C. Business impact analysis. D. Social engineering testing. If we go through the question, it's asking which of the following security assessment methods would be the most suitable to meet JVC Healthcare's needs. Their need is to identify the weaknesses and vulnerabilities that can compromise patient data, and they also want to ensure that they are complying to the regulations of the health sector. So the correct answer here would be option B, vulnerability scanning. This uses automated tools to scan a network for weaknesses, misconfigurations, and vulnerabilities. So this method can as well identify missing patches, insecure configurations, or outdated software versions that could potentially compromise patient data. So the best security assessment method would be vulnerability scanning. Question 11. In security testing, what does the term fuzzing refer to? A. A technique to identify and exploit vulnerabilities in software. B. A method to simulate denial of service attacks. C. A process of monitoring network traffic for anomalies. D. A technique for performing code reviews. We'll be going with option A. Fuzzing involves providing invalid, unexpected, or random data inputs to a software application in order to find security vulnerabilities, weaknesses, or bugs. By observing how the application handles these inputs, the testers will be able to identify the potential points of failure or the security flaws in the system. Question 12. During a security assessment, which tool would be the most appropriate for identifying misconfigurations in network devices? A. Intrusion detection system, IDS. B. Vulnerability scanner. C. Security information and event management system. D. Data loss prevention system. The answer here is option B. Remember, the vulnerability scanner is used to identify security weaknesses, including misconfigurations in the network devices, application, and system, and it does this by scanning and analyzing them against known vulnerabilities and best practices. Question 13. As a security consultant for a large financial institution planning to conduct a security assessment of their web applications to identify weaknesses and vulnerabilities, with a goal to ensure the applications meet the highest security standards, which security assessment method will be the most appropriate for this situation? A. Code review. B. Security auditing. C. Vulnerability scanning. D. Penetration testing. Going through each of the options, a code review is a detailed analysis of the source code of an application in order to identify security flaws. Security auditing is the review and analysis of security policies, procedures, and control in order to ensure that they are being followed and that they are effective. Vulnerability scanning involves focusing on the known vulnerabilities, and it does not identify new threats. Penetration testing, however, involves the active probing and testing of the security of a system in order to discover weaknesses. It involves actively simulating attacks on the system to identify vulnerabilities that could be exploited by malicious actors. So we'll be going with option D. Now, penetration testing goes beyond the vulnerability scanning by attempting to exploit the identified vulnerabilities and to assess the real-world impact on the security of the applications. Question 14. Which of the following best describes a black box testing approach? A. The tester has full knowledge of the system's internal structure. B. The tester has no prior knowledge of the system being tested. C. The tester has access to source code and documentation. D. The tester performs testing with limited knowledge of the system. Okay, so before I reveal the answer, I'm going to explain the different types of penetration testing. So we have the white box testing. In the white box testing, the tester has the full knowledge of the system's internal structure, as well as the source code and the documentation. We also have the black box testing. In the black box testing, the tester evaluates the functionality of the system without any knowledge of the internal workings or the code. The focus of this is to test the inputs and outputs of the system to ensure that it behaves as expected. So with the black box testing, the tester does not have any knowledge of the internal workings of the system. Based on that, the answer to this will be option B. I'll briefly explain the other types of penetration testing. So we have the gray box testing. In this type of test, the tester has partial knowledge of the system, combining elements of both the black box and the white box testing to perform the tests. We also have the red team, the blue team, and the purple team. The blue team is like the defensive counterpart to the red team. They focus on improving the organization's defenses, detection and response capabilities, while the red team is a team of security experts that simulates real-world attacks to test the organization's defenses. The purple team is a collaborative approach between the red and blue teams where they work together to maximize the effectiveness of both the defensive and the offensive strategies. So we can say the red team has to do with the black box testing, the blue team has to do with the white box testing, and the purple team has to do with the gray box testing. So we'll be going with option B for this particular question. Question 15. Which of the following is an example of a passive security testing technique? A. Network scanning. B. Log analysis. C. Penetration testing. D. Social engineering. There are two types of security testing. So we have the active testing and the passive testing. The active testing involves actively probing, simulating cyber attacks, or even manipulating people into divulging confidential information. So going through the options, for network scanning, it involves probing and examining a network infrastructure to identify open ports. So this is an active technique. Penetration testing is the process of simulating cyber attacks to identify and exploit vulnerabilities. So it's an active security testing. Social engineering involves manipulating people into performing actions that compromises their security. So this is also an active security testing technique. The log analysis, on the other hand, involves reviewing and analyzing log files generated by systems in order to identify potential security incidents or anomalies. This is considered passive because it does not involve actively probing or interacting with the system to uncover vulnerabilities. It analyzes log files that have already been generated by the systems in order to identify security incidents. So we'll be going with option B, log analysis. This is a passive security testing technique. Question 16. Which of the following is a tool commonly used for web application security testing? A. Wireshark. B. Nmap. C. Burp suit. D. Snort. Wireshark is a network protocol analyzer that allows users to capture and browse the traffic running on a computer network in real time. Nmap is used for network discovery and security auditing. It is used to discover the hosts and services on a computer network. So it creates a map of the network, hence the name Nmap or network mapper. The Burp suite is a web application security testing tool used to identify vulnerabilities and perform security assessments. Snort is a network intrusion detection system, and it is capable of performing real-time traffic analysis and packet logging. So based on the question, the tool that is commonly used for web application security testing will be option C, the Burp suite. The Burp suite provides features like scanning for vulnerabilities, intercepting and modifying HTTP requests, and analyzing web application behavior. So this is the tool used for web application security testing. Question 17. Which of the following best describes the purpose of SQL injection testing in web application security tests? A. To test for vulnerabilities in the web server configuration. B. To identify vulnerabilities related to improper input validation in SQL queries. C. To perform cross-site scripting attacks. D. To test for vulnerabilities in SSL TLS implementations. The answer here is option B. The purpose of SQL injection testing in web application security testing is to uncover the vulnerabilities in web applications where user input is not properly validated before it is incorporated into SQL queries. These vulnerabilities can allow attackers to manipulate SQL queries, and they will be able to gain access to the database, or they can even perform malicious actions. So that's the primary purpose of the SQL injection testing. Question 18. Which of the following is a common method used in authentication testing to identify vulnerabilities? A. Rainbow tables. B. Cross-site scripting. C. Session fixation. D. Credential stuffing. A rainbow table is used in password cracking attacks to bypass the authentication mechanism by revealing plain text passwords from hashed passwords. Cross-site scripting attacks target weaknesses in the way that web applications handle user inputs, especially where the input is not properly validated before being displayed back to the users. Session fixation attacks exploits weaknesses in the session management mechanism of web applications, such as predictable session IDs or the ability to set session IDs through the URLs or other insecure methods. Credential stuffing is a type of cyber attack where the attackers can use automated scripts to attempt to log into a user's account by using a list of stolen usernames and passwords that has been obtained from data breaches. So, for this particular question, we'll be going with option D. The credential stuffing is used to identify weak or reused passwords and inadequate authentication mechanisms, such as a lack of multi-factor authentication. So we'll be going with option D, credential stuffing. That is a common method that is used in authentication testing to identify vulnerabilities. Question 19. Which security testing technique involves analyzing the source code of a web application for vulnerabilities? A. False testing. B. Dynamic analysis. C. Static analysis. D. Penetration testing. We'll be going with option C, static analysis. Static analysis involves examining the source code or the compiled version of a program in order to identify the potential security weaknesses, coding errors, or compliance issues without executing the application. Now, this analysis can expose vulnerabilities like SQL injection, cross-site scripting, as well as insecure coding practices, and it does this by analyzing the code structure, logic, and patterns. Question 20. What is the main purpose of session management testing in web application security testing? A. To identify vulnerabilities related to improper image validation. B. To test the strength of encryption algorithms used for session data. C. To prevent cross-site scripting attacks. D. To ensure the secure handling of user sessions. We'll be going with option D. Session management testing primarily focuses on assessing how the web applications handles user sessions, including how the session identifiers are generated, transmitted, and validated. So the main purpose of the session management testing is to ensure that session-related mechanisms are implemented securely in order to prevent session hijacking, session fixation, and other session-related vulnerabilities, and this thereby safeguards the confidentiality and integrity of user sessions. This brings us to the end of Domain 6 of the CISSP certification practice questions and answers. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and also like, share, and drop a comment if you found this video helpful towards your preparation for the exam. EverlastCyber makes videos about cybersecurity certifications, IT certifications, as well as information security, because we believe in the importance of knowledge sharing within the cybersecurity community. So don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell in order to watch new videos once they are posted. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.